I'm going to show you how to make these hoops with spiral tip dangles. This is one of my favorite designs. So I've done some pre-work here for the matching earring by pre-cutting and pre-measuring, cutting and filing the ends smooth of these wires. This one is 2 3/8 inches long. That's for the main hoop. And then each of these, it doesn't really matter about how long they are, as long as they're 1/4 inch different from one another. So this one is 1 3/4, and then 2 and 2 1/4 for each of the dangles. And I pre-made a French hook ear wire, and then these are the 3 beads. They should be about like 2 to 3 millimeters in diameter. Those 3 beads will go on the ends of the spiral tips, and then this finer gauge wire is to make this spiral detailing above the bead. You don't really have to do that, but it does add some detail that makes it a more finished look. So first I used, the ruler and the wire cutters to cut the length of the wire. Used my file to file the end smooth, and then next we will work on the hoop. So I'll move everything to the side except for this main hoop. And I've got a couple of different baling pliers to use for this. They have different measurements of hoop size. So this one, this tip is 13 millimeters in diameter. I'll use that for the main hoop. And then the little eye in the center, I'll use a 3 millimeter. So start by making our main hoop. So coil it all the way around. And you can grab one of the ends with the 3 millimeter on the inside and twist that in all the way. So there, it's almost looking right, but now you have to make sure that the eye is centered. So just grab it one more time and twist it until the eye is centered. Let's see how it is. Just a little bit more. Okay, yeah, that's good. Good. And then in order to have that hoop keep its shape, we'll hammer it with a flat-faced hammer. I have to be very careful to center the hammer on the hoop so that I don't get any rough edges nicking the wire. And so I tap it pretty lightly to keep the control, and then rotate it every once in a while in case one side is getting flatter than the other. And then as we go, it looks like the hoop may have opened up a little bit, so just push that back in. And there's that central hoop. So we'll move on to the spirals. So the first thing we do here is we want to put a spiral on the tip of each, and the spiral will take 1 inch of length of each wire. So I'll just bend the wire down 1 inch and make sure that I keep track of which side is 1 inch. So I'm just bending it right on the ruler. That's the great part of having one of these metal rulers that comes right to the edge. And maybe I'll crisp up the bends just a bit. They don't really need to be that crisp, but Alright, so we have our bent pieces, and now we're going to put spirals on the 1-inch side, starting with a bended a tip up with just the very tip of these chain nose pliers. Should twist it all the way like this, and then smush it down. And that's the very center of the spiral. And you grab that and start forming the spiral. And as at the tighter parts, you gotta smush it down. As the spiral gets bigger and bigger, you don't need to do that as much. And then twist it just to the point where it looks like a nice centered lollipop, and move on to the next one. So we'll do this to all three, getting that very tip right there. One more. And I like to do all the, when there's a couple of pieces that are repetitive, like these dangles, do it assembly line style. As long as you're holding one tool, you might as well do the same step to all three. So those are some nice lollipops. And just with the, as with the center hoop, we want to hammer those so that it gives it a little more finished look and also makes it stronger. But this time we'll use the round-faced hammer because we can't really cover the whole thing and it'll soften it. I don't want to get the stem really at all. I just want to get the tip. And that's the last hammering we'll do. So again, assembly line style, let's just put a bead on all of these. And then we'll add our spiral detailing, our coil at the top of the bead. So you don't really need much wire at all. We only need about 1 inch or so per dangle, but I like to use, I'm just using this long piece so ensure that I don't waste any. So start coiling the wire around. I'll give it a very kind of sloppy looking coil there, but I can tighten it up with my chain nose pliers by squishing the coils together. That's starting to look better. I want to get that tip smushed down. Sometimes you have to be patient with this really, really tiny detail work. And the coil looks like it's a decent length. We'll just clip off the end. And smush the other end down. And slide the coil to the top of the bead. So now we have to do that for all of them. See, they didn't really use much of the wire up. We can do it again. Yeah, you get to see everything in triplicate in case I forgot to give you a good view the first time. Does that look about the same length? Yeah, close enough. And slide that down on top of the bead. Looks like maybe another end is sticking up. All right, one more to go. See, it looks like I used a pretty long piece that size, so won't do that end all the way to the end this time. We'll leave a little bit. Tighten up that coil. Let's compare it with one of these others. Maybe a little more to go. Okay, I can now go ahead and use the rest of that end. Okay, that looks good. All right, now those are all done, and finally we will add a little tiny eye to the top. I want it to be small and delicate, so we will use the tip of these round nose pliers. And this is where it's a good idea to look at your other earring if you've already made one and check if you want it to be a mirror image. Arrange everything the way you want so you know what the front is. So if this is the front, we want the eye to go backward. All the way around. Tip and bend it back. So you have a nice eye hole shape, and we'll straighten that out a little bit later. Bend it back, around. It slipped off my eye hole for a second, so I had to push it back on. And forward. And maybe forward a little too much, so we'll go back and straighten that out. Okay. last one. Alright, so the straightening out part, we'll just use the chain nose pliers to straighten it. Make sure, yeah, hold it this way, make sure that everything's centered, just that way. This is how you can make sure you're holding it exactly flat, and use the chain nose pliers to wiggle it around and make sure that the stem is straight and that the eye is pointing exactly the right direction. See, this one's pretty wonky right there. We'll fix it. Just by gripping it tightly and wiggling it usually works. Alright, so now everything's straight. And again, let's set everything up so it looks like a mirror image. We have a long one in the center. Have the shortest one on the outside. No, the shortest one's on the inside. The middle one's on the outside. And all of the spirals are facing the right direction, and we have our ear wire. So, although it might seem tempting to open up every single one of these and clip it to there, that is not the easiest way. We only want to open as few eyes as possible. So let's just open that one in the center. Grip it like this and twist it gently open. And I can start threading my dangles on in the order that I've laid them out. And let's see, if I forgot to put on my hook first, I could just go in from the other direction. Let's go around the hoop. Oops, well, that solves that problem. Let's put those on again. I'm going to use my template over here. Side. Alright, that's correct. So one, two, three. Now all we need to do is close that eye. And there we have it.